Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Well, first am I, good evening and welcome to Update, your whistle-stop rundown of what's been happening news-wise on the Isle of Man today, and the answer to that is quite a lot. Coming up with news that doctors employed by Manx Care are to ballot for industrial action. We'll hear what's prompted this and how the health body is responding. Also tonight, maybe hold off your tea for a bit. We're going to bring you the very latest on the appeal hearing into the Peel sewage treatment works, and there's been some good news for Manx Grand Prix fans today. What do we know about the changes coming into force next year? We'll also look at the weather, traffic and travel as well. And as ever, if you'd like to get in touch, you're welcome to. 166 177 is the text number, or you can email studio@manxradio.com. First, let's join Lewis for a roundup of today's main news headlines.
Fast am I. First of all, you might be having trouble with your phone. Manx Telecom says there are intermittent issues affecting customers across its networks. It says engineers are looking into this as a priority, and it will provide an update as soon as possible. Contaminated water, which has been leaking from a storage silo at the Sellafield nuclear plant in Cumbria for about 5 years, is currently being contained within the immediate area. That's the assurance being given to the Manx government by the plant's management. The Nuclear Decommissioning Agency admits that the complex, hugely expensive and painstaking work to clean up the site is likely to continue well into the next century. A report's found criminalising people for minor drugs possession offences on the island can do more harm than the substances themselves. The Department of Home Affairs has now put together its policy principles with a focus on moving away from a criminal justice-based approach to drugs in favour of public health and harm reduction. And the Isle of Man Post Office has recorded a profit of £2.58 million over the last year, an increase of £2 million on the year before. The figures have been shared in the Post Office's latest annual report. In the latest international news now, 3 people have reportedly been killed in a terror attack at the headquarters of a defence and aerospace company in Turkey. Local media reported a loud explosion and gunfire in the capital, Ankara. 3 people have died following an emergency incident at a care home in Dorset. Dorset police say the deaths at Gainsborough Care Home in Swanage are currently being treated as unexplained. And firearms officers on trial over police shootings will not in future be named during criminal proceedings. The UK Home Secretary says they act in the most dangerous situations on behalf of the state. Those are the headlines, and I'll be back with the news at 6 o'clock.
Thanks very much, Lewis. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. It is going to turn cloudy this evening, so there might be the odd shower at times. Fresh to strong southerly winds, temperatures down to 10 tonight. Tomorrow, cloudy, some light and patchy rain developing later in the evening. Quite breezy, fresh to strong southeast winds, best temperatures tomorrow of 15. And then Friday is a bit of a washout, outbreaks of rain for much of the day. Some of them might be heavy at times, and temperatures again around 15. Sunset this evening will be at 2 minutes past 6. Sunrise tomorrow morning, 4 minutes past 8.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
See the island like you've never seen it before on an incredible chauffeur-driven trike tour. A unique way to make memories that will last a lifetime. Gift vouchers available too. See iomtriketours.com for details and booking.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Bell-Dorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company. Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio. It's coming up to 5:05. Now, as you may have heard, and we just heard in the news headlines, doctors employed by Manx Care on the Isle of Man are to ballot for industrial action. The British Medical Association is asking for a 12.6% uplift in pay for the 23-24 financial year. Well, Chair of the Isle of Man Medical Society and Local Negotiating Committee of BMA, Dr Prakash Thiagarajan, has been telling Siobhan that this process could begin before the end of the month.
We expect the dates for the ballots to be announced in the next week or two, and then obviously we need to give time. I think we are still under the 1991 Trade Union Act, which means all ballots have to be on paper and by post, so that's going to take time.
Given the fact that those finances are so under a microscope right now, really, realistically, are we going to see that this financial year?
We sincerely hope so. In fact, currently the vacancy rates amongst staff is running around 20%, which is not healthy for anybody. And just to attract new doctors, we have to have our pay scales at least on par with the UK. In fact, it used to be better, particularly with specialty doctors and what used to be called junior doctors and now called resident doctors. We are well behind the UK. As you know, NHS England recently settled with resident doctors for 22% over 2 years. We want to be able to attract the brightest and the best to want to come and settle here. And it's not just a short-term gain we are looking for. We are looking for people who would come here, settle, make Isle of Man their home. I've had doctors badgering me, asking, when is it coming? Because we previously did an online survey, which is obviously advisory. It's not a binding ballot. And 78% of the doctors said they will take industrial action.
That's Chair of the Isle of Man Medical Society, Dr Prakash Thiagarajan, speaking to Siobhan there. Well, the Chief Executive of Manx Care says she doesn't think they're even close to being able to resolve this pay dispute. Manx Care's Chief Executive, Teresa Cope, says it is proving difficult to reach an agreement.
I think this follows the settlements that have now been achieved in the UK and the resolution in other jurisdictions. So, I do recognise that we have fallen behind, but obviously Manx Care offered 6% for 23-24 for last year, and the BMA are seeking 12.6. And there's a significant gap there. So to bridge that gap, we would need to find around a further £3.5 to £4 million in order to achieve that settlement at 12.6. Obviously, we start the following year's pay negotiations, and we've offered 4% for 24-25, the current year. But yes, I think it's a great source of stress for everybody concerned that we haven't been able to settle this pay dispute.
Now, the BMA told us that it's concerned about the impact that this could have on recruitment for Manx Care. Is that something that is also a concern for you, that if you can't match what's being offered in the UK, staff simply won't come here?
I think it is a concern in the longer term. What I would say is we have been able to recruit into most of our substantive vacancies for doctors. When Manx Care started, there was a high number of agency and locum doctors working for us. That is absolutely down to a minimum now. So we have very few vacancies for doctors across the organisation, which is a real positive. Our base salary for doctors is still higher than the UK, so we still are able to pay slightly more than the UK. The top of that scale, it's around 25 to 30k better than the UK. But I do take that point that unless we can remain competitive in that market over a longer period of time, we will and potentially see our ability to recruit reduce. Any form of industrial action is not good. It's very distracting, it's very unsettling, and I would just make the point again, it's not what any of us would want.
That's the Chief Executive of Manx Care, Teresa Cope. She was speaking live on Breakfast this morning. You can hear the interviews in full from both sides of this argument at the Manx Radio website in the latest editions of the Manx Newscast. It's 9 minutes past 5, so we know now there will be changes to the Manx Grand Prix schedule next year. I'm joined by Rob Pritchard, our sports editor. And Rob, first of all, for those who may not have caught up with all these announcements yet, can you just give us an overview of what the major developments are?
Certainly. So the Department for Enterprise has confirmed that the Classic TT will return next year and will run alongside the Manx Grand Prix in what is going to be an expanded 12-day schedule, which will run from Friday the 17th of August to Sunday the 29th of August. As part of it, there will be 4 Manx Grand Prix races, which will include modern machinery, whilst there'll be 5 races for classic machines. Well, for the last 3 years, the Manx Grand Grand Prix has run on a shorter 9-day programme, whilst the Classic TT last ran between 2013 and 2019.
And I think it's fair to say that shorter MGP schedule in recent years has come in for some scrutiny from both motorsport fans and residents.
Yes, indeed it has, and questions have previously been raised, particularly over how much flexibility that 9-day format has if there's delays or cancellations, and that certainly was an issue organisers had to contend with for this year's event back in August. The majority of MGP 2024 was severely disrupted for a number of reasons, and chief among which was the poor weather conditions. So why bring in the changes to the event now? What do officials hope to achieve with them? Well, John McBride, chair of the MGP's organisers, the Manx Motorcycle Club, was asked about that on the Manx Radio Breakfast Show this morning.
Well, it's hoped to, obviously we're bringing back the TT brand, the Department for Enterprise want to leverage a little bit to bring more fans to the island, and obviously to assist in the hospitality sector. It was found, particularly with the weather disruption last year, that the hospitality sector suffered, and it was a bit stop-start for them and this sort of thing. So really it's been a lot of thought has gone into it, but in a very short space of time, because it's less than 2 months since the Manx Grand Prix, so there's a lot been going on behind the scenes.
Well, we know that fans have been calling for the schedule to go back to the 2 weeks pretty much since the shorter schedule came in a couple of years ago. Why are we only seeing these changes now?
The big problem was the volunteers, really. The whole event runs on volunteers, and trying to get sufficient volunteers for a full 2 weeks has always been problematic, but it became more and more problematic, particularly with safety protocols and this sort of thing. So we needed to reduce it, unfortunately. But since that time, the TTMA have done a lot of work behind the scenes from their point of view in motorsport medical services. They've really pushed along, and they're hopefully confident that they're going to be able to meet the demand. They really rallied in 2024, or the 2024 event, to fill the gaps despite all the weather disruption. But it's a chance for everyone to get behind the event now. Now we've gone back to the 2-week event. It's time for everyone to get behind it, and those who may never have marshalled before, there's plenty of incident management courses going on, and they've only got to go onto the islandmanttmarshals.com website and book a course and become a marshal.
That's Chair of the Manx Motorcycle Club, John McBride, speaking on Manx Radio earlier today. Now, Rob, you mentioned before the concerns over flexibility in the schedule in the past few years. Is this something that's going to be addressed in the new format?
Well, as part of this near 2-week schedule, there will be 6 contingency sessions spread out across the meeting. During the qualifying week, contingency slots will be available on the afternoons of Wednesday the 20th of August and Thursday the 21st of August, and on the evening of Friday the 22nd of August. In race week, there are contingency sessions available on Sunday the 24th of August, Tuesday the 26th of August, and Thursday the 28th of August. One key thing worth noting is that when in the last 2 years I've put some of the criticisms about the shorter schedule to Mr McBride and the MMC, they've repeated the same message, that it wasn't possible to go back to a 2-week format because they wouldn't be able to secure sufficient marshal and medical cover. And yet, here we are now with a 2-week event returning in 2025. So the question is, if marshal and medical cover was an issue in the last 2 years, then how are they possibly going to manage it next year? Well, Mr McBride there, he says there seems to be a positive outlook, and he and other officials are confident it can be achieved. So we will just have to wait and see.
And just finally, Rob, the Department for Enterprise has also made a longer-term promise to the event.
Yes, indeed. Along with the schedule announcement, the Department for Enterprise has confirmed a 3-year commitment to support the event, and Mr McBride also feels confident that this pledge secures the immediate future of the event. Well, you can view the 2025 Classic TT and MGP schedule on our website. The schedule is now subject to necessary road closure orders being approved.
Rob, for now, thank you very much indeed. It is coming up to 14 minutes past 5. Some business news now, and profits at the Isle of Man Post Office are up £2 million on the year before. Lewis has the details.
In the 2023-24 financial year, the Post Office brought home a profit of £2.58 million. The figures have been shared in the company's latest annual report. Chief Officer Simon Neen says the increase in headline turnover from £24.2 million to £25.4 million is in part due to a £1.3 million increase in the core mails division. He says it reflects a double-digit increase in inbound parcels, offset by a decline in the volume of letters. Alongside the financial report is the company's annual statutory board plan for 2024 to 25. Amongst its key strategic objectives for between now and 2028 are aims such as becoming a parcel business. The Post Office says it wants to increase its inbound parcel market share and parcel delivery partners by strengthening its UK supply chain arrangements. It also wants to progress the transition of its retail network to provide what it calls enhanced and innovative access for customers to postal-only services, both online and in person, with conveniently located retail services including doorstep collections. As part of its universal service obligations, it says it will look at letter price increases to offset volume decline and inflationary costs, while still offering customers value for money. It will also look to introduce postage labels with an expiry date and a method to invalidate old stamps. You can find a link to the Post Office annual report via manxradio.com.
Thank you, Lewis. Now, the stock market report is brought to us by Ramsey Crookall. Tonight, they say that UK and European markets traded lower as investors in the region focused on corporate results and US Treasury yields. The US dollar rose as investors adjusted bets toward a gradual reduction of interest rates while keeping an eye on a close presidential election race. Oil prices fell after industry data showed US crude inventories swelled more than expected, though futures were still up this week as traders factored in continuing conflict in the Middle East. And gold prices hit record highs, defying the dollar's rise, and that kept pressure on the yen and the euro, while global stocks edged lower on investors' reluctance to place major bets ahead of the US election in less than 2 weeks' time. Can you believe it? Commodities then, gold finished off 1.11% at $2,718. Brent off 0.62% at $74.77. At the close, the FTSE 100 was off 0.58% at 8,258. And a short time ago, the Dow Jones was trading off 0.92% at 42,531. And the Nasdaq was off 1.12% at 18,364.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
3:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, so far so good. Short and sweet on the travel tonight. No road issues to report, though as ever, if you see anything, 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com, and all looking okay at the airport and Steam Packet as well.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
This is Update on Manx Radio FM, coming up to 18 minutes past 5. Now, the appeal hearing into the planned sewage treatment works on Glenfaber Road in Peel continued today. Apologies if you're just about to eat. But Manx Utilities and appellant David Jones have been putting further evidence across to the Inspector Jennifer Weiss. Our local democracy reporter Emma Draper has been covering the hearing for us over the past couple of days. Emma, first, can you just give us a run through of what happened yesterday?
So the first day of the hearing covered a lot of topics, including the main appeal point for Mr Jones, which is the impact on his field and housing development. It was confirmed he's currently got the foundation for one house and an entry and exit on his site, and his concerns are based around the impact and future of his land. The other major point raised yesterday was about the perceived lack of public consultation about an environmental impact assessment by Mr Jones's witness, Peter Willers. He claimed the MUA had gone against regulations, but officers from the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture said it wasn't needed, and the MUA maintained public exhibitions were part of the consultation process for the public. Alternative sites were proposed, but they reiterated a number of times its preferred site is on Glenfaber Road.
OK, so we'll move on to today's hearing. And one concern I'm sure people do have, and I don't like to say it, but I'm going to, is about odour.
Yes, there was quite a lot of evidence presented to the inspector about this today. Mr Jones told the hearing mapping used by Manx Utilities was wrong and odour would impact his site more than what was modelled. The MUA's advocate, James Burton, said the modelling showed Mr Jones' site would only be slightly impacted, and this was measured kilometres from the closest point on his land to the proposed treatment works.
And so onto the construction of the site, Emma. What evidence did the inspector hear about that?
Well, the MUA said in its plans the site would be seen from the older railway line and would also be seen from Peel, but so is the power station. Mr Jones claims he had been told previously not to build sheds in the gardens of the houses he was building because they'd be visible from the Heritage Trail, and believes this is why it shouldn't be there. Other queries raised by Mr Jones about construction included land slippage, with an expert saying contour lines on a map don't indicate this occurring into Mr Jones's land, and that they will build a base at the bottom of a slope to ensure its safety. The loss of employment land and noise of the site were also raised as concerns. But tomorrow, Inspector Jennifer Vise will hear conditions and closing statements from both parties.
Emma Draper, thank you very much indeed. You can find out more at manxradio.com. It's just gone 5:20, and the UK Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, Ed Miliband, has granted nationally significant infrastructure status to Orsted's plans to build a wind farm in Manx territorial waters. Now, this information is contained in a media release which we received here at Manx Radio from Orsted. Simon Richardson joins me in the studio now. Simon, you've been looking at this. What exactly does it mean?
Well, Beth, from an Isle of Man perspective, it's not really made clear. The status granted by Ed Miliband, the UK Secretary of State for Energy, Security and Net Zero, enables Orsted to apply for planning consent by making a development consent order application in England. That's utilising all the powers available under the UK Planning Act 2008. Now, the move's been described as a significant milestone for the project by Orsted's Development Director for the Isle of Man, John Galloway.
Why would the UK Secretary of State intervene in this way?
Well, I think to my knowledge we're in uncharted territory on this one, Beth. Mr Miliband is quoted as saying the proposed development and the project which it forms part of will play an important role in enabling an energy system that meets the UK's commitment to reduce carbon emissions and the British government's objectives to create a secure, reliable and affordable energy supply to consumers. Now, this of course relates to the fact that energy generated by the Morvannin wind farm in Manx waters will be sold to the UK national grid for consumption over there.
So do we know how this will initially affect progress of the project?
First and foremost, Beth, it means Orsted will be able to apply for planning consent for enabling transmission infrastructure in the UK, which they say is a crucial step towards the successful delivery of the wind farm and realising the Isle of Man's goals for sustainable economic development and renewable energy.
OK, so it's a lot to take in here, Simon, but I guess what we want to know is how does all this dovetail with the planning process here on the Isle of Man?
Well, that's the question I think we'll all be asking in the wake of this statement, Beth. But for now, it's unclear. We would assume, rightly or wrongly, that the Isle of Man's planning process would always take precedence, given that the wind farm would be within its territorial waters.
Simon, thank you very much. You can find more again on this story at manxradio.com. 5:22. The Infrastructure Minister has confirmed his department is targeting a completion date for the Balfane roundabout of April 2026. Now, this junction would connect to the Ballasalla bypass, but Tim Crookall told the House of Keys this week there are issues still to be resolved around coal tar in the carriageway and the transfer of land from Maloo commissioners to his department.
The coal tar issue, I think we're very close to sorting that out. We have to, because as I said, I think the other week, there are quite a few issues around the island on roads where we have coal tar, and we need to be able to sort that out. But I think we are close to that, and we're working closely with Treasury. And as I said, once we've got that sorted, we then will tender for the job with the specifications that we need. In order to complete this land agreement, there is a requirement for us to release a third-party covenant on the Commissioner's land, and one final signature is still required before completion, Mr Speaker.
There seems to be an element of confusion here in terms of Dandora saying that their section of the bypass is complete and they're ready for the link through to the roundabout. In terms of the Minister's answer, we seem to have an issue that there's a incomplete piece of work that Dandara need to do. Could you give us some detail on that, please? And then we can actually go away from this question in terms of we've got clarity on the bypass and the link from the bypass through to the wider issue of the Balfane roundabout. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I will happily get the exact details on this, but speaking from memory and from several visits down to the site, and the honourable member hopefully has done that himself, if you go down the bypass, it's not finished yet. There is a top coat to go on it. It's not been signed off, so it's not completed. As I said 2 weeks ago and was challenged on that, it's not complete because it's not signed off, and there is a third coat to go on that, and that will happen at the same time as we do our bit to make it all one top coat, if you like, but it's not complete. But as soon as that is done, or as soon as we've got our bit done, it'll all be top coated together.
That is the Infrastructure Minister Tim Crookall speaking in the House of Keys this week. You can hear more about this on Breakfast tomorrow morning. It's a John Moss special. 24 minutes past 5. Criminalising people for minor drugs possession offences does more harm than the substances themselves. Now, this is the finding of a report looking at ways to tackle the harm caused by drugs on the Isle of Man. Sean Cowper has the details.
The report, which will be brought to Tynwald next month, comes after the Liverpool John Moores University Public Health Institute looked into the impact of drug use on the island. The Department of Home Affairs has now put together its policy principles with a focus on moving away from a criminal justice-based approach to drugs in favour of public health and harm reduction. The principles, which will be subject to Tynwald approval, include an increase of health services to treat substance abuse and greater access to mental health services for those impacted by drugs. The approach would also look to prioritise diversion and treatment over criminalisation, with a fear that prosecuting drug users for minor offences can lead to broader and greater harm. Instead, the report says those with minor possession offences should be signposted to treatment. Looking to the future, the report highlights evidence that a regulated environment similar to the sale of alcohol and tobacco products can reduce harm. It says ensuring adults can make informed choices on substances can lead to more controlled usage, but that this would require further public consultation and an assessment on the societal impact of such change.
Sean Cowper reporting there. That's likely to be a very interesting one for Tynwald next month. Now, Rob Pritchard loves updates so much, he's come back again.
Back for Chapter 2. Well, elsewhere in the sports side of things today, the search is underway to find out who could represent the Isle of Man in the gruelling triathlon events at next year's Island Games. The Manx Tri Club is holding a meeting in the next hour on the upper level of 1886 Bar and Bistro on Regent Street in Douglas at 5:45 for those who may be interested in applying to take part. The organisation says information will be provided during the meeting, including selection criteria and details around logistics such as costs, travel and accommodation. Well, anyone considering applying for a place in the triathlon team who can't attend tonight's session is invited to contact Manx Tri Club via message on its social media channels. At the previous Island Games in Guernsey in 2023, the Isle of Man enjoyed medal success in both the standard triathlon events and the newly introduced triathlon relay. In the standard triathlon, Will Draper claimed individual bronze in the men's event, with the Manx team securing team bronze in the men's event. And in the relay, the trio of Draper, Corin Leeming and Ciara Prentice won team bronze. Meanwhile, two of the Isle of Man's snooker players put in a series of spirited performances to reach the last 12 stage of this year's EBSA European Team Snooker Championships. While taking place in the Algarve, Portugal this year, the island was represented by Dolan Mercer and Daryl Hill in both the individual shootout and team competitions between the 18th and 24th of October. In the shootout on Saturday, both players were beaten in their opening matches before both then linked up for the team event, winning 2 of their 3 group matches to progress to the knockouts. There, they faced Malta 1 in the last 12 and, despite fighting from 2-0 down, couldn't stop the Maltese pairing from winning the 5th and deciding frame to take the contest 3-2. Well, despite exiting the tournament, the Isle of Man will be represented internationally again from the 1st to the 6th of November as Hill heads to Doha in Qatar for the 2024 IBSF World Amateur Championships. And finally, TT winner and regular mountain course competitor James Hillier has moved one step closer to returning to one of the most challenging motorsport events on the planet. The Ringwood rider has secured his machine for the 2025 Dakar Rally. He'll ride a Cove Moto UK 450 for the rally, due to take place from the 3rd to the 17th of January next year. Hillier made his debut in the rally in 2023, becoming the first ever TT winner to take part in it.
Wow. Very impressive indeed. I'm just wondering if I've got time to make it to that triathlon meeting. Oh, probably not. Probably not. No, not going to make it.
If you've got the pace of a triathlete, you might make it.
Yeah. That is all from Update this evening. Thank you so much for being with us as ever. And remember, more details about all tonight's top stories can be found at manxradio.com. And if you'd like to let us know what you think about any of them, you can join us on our social media pages. Remember, we also have Man in Line, your lunchtime appointment, just to get anything off your chest. You can also leave a message for that out of hours, 682 631. Coming up next on Manx Radio, it's Spotlight with Howard Kane, supported by the Isle of Man Arts Council. Newcastle. Then Greatest Hits is here from 6 with Jason Moore. Country Roads with Andy Winton. He is wearing the hat and boots today. That'll be on from 9. And Rianne Evans is here from 10 with After Hours. Again, enjoy your evening, whatever you're up to. Make the most of it, because we know that rain is coming in fairly shortly towards the end of the week. And we'll see you here back at 5 p.m. on Update tomorrow.